Hello, Natasha, your Empress of Wands here, and today I want to talk about something which has been on my mind for quite a while. I want to explain why it is absolutely ridiculous to be racist, prejudiced, or to think lesser of any other person on this planet. Okay, so I can prove this to you even. Okay, if you want, I can prove to you why it's absolutely ridiculous. Now, the premise is that if you're watching this is a spiritual channel, right? We do tarot, we talk about the soul, we talk about being the best person we can in this lifetime, we talk about advancing, we talk about finding our purpose in life, we talk about becoming wiser. So if you're here, you're probably at the point where you know that there's more to us than just this, right? You're probably at the point where you realize that we are eternal beings, that we are souls living a human experience. I think that's pretty much a given if you're watching this, okay? No matter what spiritual belief you have, I mean, that is something that in everybody's spiritual journey, they realize that our soul is our essence. Our soul is who we really are. And we're having this experience in this lifetime, in this human body, right now. And you know, I know this because besides for reading tarot, my beautiful cards for all you beautiful people, I'm also a past life regressionist. I'm a clinical hypnotherapist. I learned this. I learned all the proper techniques of regression. So a lot of the work that I do is taking someone and helping them move into their soul consciousness and regress their soul through the journey of their soul's history, of their soul's time back in time and space to where the soul lived before this lifetime. And it's really amazing, that work, because, okay, we believe it, we read about it, we have our philosophies, but to actually experience this is something else, it's something really profound. And I've done these journeys myself. I've regressed my soul a few times to where my soul actually lives. So what my experience is with myself, with my clients who I've done this with, is that our soul lives in a place which is not here on earth. We live in a different place on the other side, so to say. And it's a really great place, okay? It's fabulous, it's beautiful. And from there, we come down here to earth. We plan journeys. I see it kind of like safaris, okay? We're up there, our soul is in its home, it's in its element. We live with our soul family, with our soul mates. We're growing as a soul, as a being, over thousands, hundreds of thousands of years. And we take these journeys down to earth as learning experiences, kind of like going on a Wild West safari. So we plan this. We say, okay, I'm going to go down there and I'm going to put into my plan of this life that I'm going to live down there in that body. I'm going to go down there. I'm going to merge with that body. I'm going to live that life to learn this lesson. You want to come with me, my soulmate? Okay, let's meet when we're 40 years old. Okay. And then, okay, what do I need to learn? I need to learn more compassion with others. So perhaps let's meet at 40, dear soulmate. This is me talking as a soul in heaven. Or whatever you want to call the other side. I just said heaven because a lot of people can relate to that, right? So, dear soulmate, we'll meet when we're 40. And how about you die early? So we have 10 years together, so we recognize each other as soulmates. So I learn my lesson. Do you want to do that? Okay. You see what I'm getting at? So we plan our lives. We plan our parents. We choose them. We plan what we're going to look like. We plan who we are going to be. So it's planned. And now this is the interesting thing. In the life that I went down as in my regression, where I was the most happiest, do you think I looked like this? Do you think I looked like this? The life that I remember where I was the happiest, I looked very different. I had very, very dark skin. I was a big lady. I lived in the Dominican Republic maybe 100 years ago. Black curly hair. I lived in the sugarcane fields. I was poor. I had a husband and kids, and I was so happy. It was a happy life. I did that as a regression, and I felt good in my body. I loved cooking. I loved eating. I loved being outside. I loved my family. I had a really good, happy life, and I did not look like this. And that was me. My name was Maria in that life. And in the regression, I went through that life. I went through the death scene of that life. And after I lived that life, I had to part, and I looked down on Maria, who I had to leave behind, the human part of me, who had to die, who had to merge back into the earth, and I could move on. And I felt such sadness, and I felt such a deep gratitude for Maria having carried me. She was my best friend. I even tear up now when I think about having to leave her behind. She was so beautiful. And she was a very dark-skinned, dark-haired woman who was poor, who didn't have much of material things. But she was happy. She was beautiful. She gave me a wonderful life. I was her. So if now I look at people who look like her or who look any different than me, and I think, how am I supposed to do that? I was her. I was Maria. Maria was me. So, do you see what I'm getting at? And in other lifetimes, I want you to ask yourself, how many lives do you think you've experienced down here on earth? Do you think you've chosen to look as you look right now in each lifetime? As souls, we want to experience the fullness of life. So, I bet every single one of you watching, you, in your last lifetime, you looked very different. In the lifetime before that, you looked different still. And you are all those people that you lived as down here on earth. So look at yourself now. Okay, how do you look? What's your skin color? What's your eye color? What's your hair color? Are you big? Are you small? Do you have a disability? And think about the opposite of what you look like. You were that person in a lifetime. Every single continent on earth, you've probably reincarnated on every single continent on earth. You have looked like every single person that exists on this earth. You've had black eyes, blue eyes, brown eyes, green eyes, blind eyes. Very likely. You've been rich, you've been poor. You've had power. You've had sicknesses, diseases, short lives, long lives. You've chosen that. So we are all one. We are all one. So how can you ever think lesser of another person? Because when is the last time you looked at a person and you kind of went, and felt a little embarrassed, disgusted, superior, someone with a different faith perhaps? What faith do you have? Let's see. Are you Catholic? Do you think in every lifetime you were a Catholic? Do you really believe that? I can tell you that it's probably not the case. You probably have incarnated in every religion. You have been Buddhist, you have been Christian, you have been atheist, you have been following Islam, praying to Allah, praying to God, to Jesus, to Buddha. You've been not religious, I'm sure, too. Atheist. You see what I'm getting at? We're all one. We are all one. We can't separate ourselves thinking about it that way. So my question is, who have you lately kind of looked at? Perhaps someone with a different religion, or perhaps someone with a genetical difference. Someone who looks very different. Someone who you see as having a disability, or someone with a very severe disability. physical, mental, whatever. When's the last time you looked at someone and you thought, oh, and you cringed a little bit? You are that person. I'm sure that the person that you're cringing at, you're doing that because you were them once upon a time, and you lived that lifetime once upon a time, and the memory is coming up and you're cringing because maybe it was difficult. And if you see someone who's having a really, really hard time, maybe someone who's homeless. I know a lot of people think, oh, someone who's in a deep addiction. Salute them because they were brave enough to choose that as their life. They're brave enough to learn the lesson that's to be learned as that which they are. So, anytime you look at someone, you think a little lesser of them. Sexual preference, even men looking at women, or women looking at men. Oh, do you think, are you male or are you female, huh? I'm asking you. You're a woman? Do you think you incarnated as a woman every time? That's another thing to think about. Are you heterosexual? Do you think you incarnated as a heterosexual every time? I'm sorry if I'm stepping on people's boundaries, but think about it. As a soul, we don't see things like that. As a soul, we want to learn and experience the fullness of life on earth in many, many different excursions down here. And I'm sure that we're going to choose something completely different each time. Okay, we are all one. That's my point. So I'm telling you, my friend, you're a Christian, you're a Muslim, you're Buddhist, you're heterosexual, you're homosexual, you're black, you're white. Okay? You're big, you're small, you're rich, you're poor, you're in power, you're a slave. You are all those things because what you have lived is within you. You are me and I am you. You who are watching, I was you one day, a long time ago. I'm sure I've lived many lives. I'm sure of that. Some people have lived more, some people have lived less. You are me. You've lived my type of life. You've looked like me once upon a time. I've looked like you. Okay? You are me and I am you. And we're all one. So, when you see someone who's different, who you're thinking, or oh, or you know, any of those things, just open yourself up. Look into their eyes. See yourself in them. And salute them and say, Namaste. I see your soul. You're brave. Thank you for showing me difference. Perhaps I remember that I was you and you were me. And meet them with unconditional love. Because we're all one, and that's my point. There's no difference. We see the differences now, but in reality there is no difference at all. And that's what I wanted to say to you today. Thank you and namaste.